You don't make people regret losing you by pleading for their attention or explaining your worth to someone who refuses to see it. Begging only inflates their ego and confirms their belief that they hold all the power. The moment you start chasing, you lose your value. If you want them to feel the true gravity of your absence, you have to master the art of disappearing. True regret isn't born from an argument or a tearful goodbye. It is born from the sudden, jarring void you leave behind when you finally decide that your peace is worth more than their participation in your life. Silence is not an act of pettiness. It is the most powerful mirror you can hold up to someone else's behavior. When you remain silent, you stop providing them with the noise, the drama, and the emotional labor they have grown accustomed to using as a distraction from their own toxicity. Without your reactions to deflect their guilt, they are forced to look at themselves in the reflection of your absence. They can no longer blame you for the chaos because you are no longer there to carry the weight of it. They have to sit with their own thoughts, their own flaws, and the cold reality that they lost the one person who actually cared. When you stop reacting, the dynamic of the entire relationship shifts overnight. They are used to your attempts to fix things, your late-night texts, and your desire for resolution. When that ends, their mind begins to replay every moment they took for granted. They start remembering the way you supported them, the comfort you provided, and the loyalty you gave freely. Suddenly, the silence that you created becomes a haunting sound for them. They realize that the comfort they enjoyed was not a right they were owed, but a gift they were lucky to receive. By simply choosing to walk away, you turn their indifference into a realization that they didn't just lose a person, they lost a sanctuary. Choosing your peace is the loudest statement you can possibly make. It signals that you are no longer willing to sacrifice your mental health for someone else's immaturity. When you prioritize yourself, you place an invisible, unbreakable boundary between you and them. They will try to reach out. They will test the waters. And they will wait for you to break your silence just like you always did in the past. But when you remain steadfast in your decision to stay detached, they finally begin to feel the crushing weight of what they destroyed. It isn't a feeling they can run from anymore. It is the realization that they burned the only bridge that led to someone who truly saw them. This isn't about hoping they come back. It is about reclaiming the power you gave away the moment you allowed them to treat you as an option. When you disappear, you aren't waiting for them to notice you. You are moving toward a future where their opinion of you no longer dictates your happiness. You are teaching them a lesson they weren't ready to learn. And you are doing it without saying a single word. If you are ready to stop the cycle and show them that your absence is the ultimate consequence of their actions, here are the 7 silent behaviors that will make them realize exactly what they lost. 1. Observe without reacting. When you commit to observing without reacting, you are essentially closing the curtains on a stage where they were used to being the lead actor. Toxic people and those who hurt you thrive on the emotional fuel you provide. They need your tears, your anger, your defense, and your explanations to justify their own behavior. By refusing to give them that reaction, you effectively starve the fire they are trying to keep burning. When they lash out, act out, or try to goad you into a fight, your choice to remain calm, cold, and composed acts as a brick wall. It is the most terrifying thing you can do to someone who is used to controlling your emotions because suddenly they are left shouting into a void with no one to play their game with. Many people mistake this level of detachment for weakness, thinking that if you don't fight back, you are letting them win. In reality, it is the exact opposite. Giving in to the urge to scream, argue, or seek revenge is actually giving away your power because it shows them exactly how much they can hurt you. When you observe them with a detached gaze, seeing them for exactly who they are rather than who you hoped they would be, you reclaim your autonomy. You are no longer a participant in their chaos. You are a witness to it. You are watching their patterns with the clarity that only comes from someone who is finally ready to let go. And that shift in perspective is what puts you back in the driver's seat. Your silence becomes a weapon of psychological weight because it disrupts their entire narrative. If you were to argue, they would have a counterargument. If you were to cry, they would have an excuse. If you were to explain your pain, they would have a way to manipulate it further. But with silence, there's nothing for them to grab onto. Your lack of reaction exposes their behavior for what it truly is, a desperate, ugly attempt to feel powerful without you having to say a single word to point it out. It highlights their instability against your stillness, making their actions look small, petty, and entirely unnecessary compared to your grounded, calm presence. Ultimately, your silence is infinitely louder than the sharpest insult or the deepest heartbreak you could ever try to express through words. Words are easily dismissed and can be turned against you in an argument. But silence is an absolute boundary. It leaves them alone with their own conscience, forcing them to sit in the uncomfortable space of their own mistakes. When you don't give them the show they wanted, they are forced to deal with the reality of what they have done without any of your emotional labor to soften the blow. You aren't being nice by staying quiet. You are being ruthlessly effective in reclaiming your peace, showing them that they no longer have the clearance to access your inner world. 2. Stop the explanations. The moment you choose to detach instead of arguing, you are effectively cutting the oxygen supply to a fire that has been burning you out for far too long. Toxic individuals are experts at manufacturing chaos because it creates a smoke screen. They want you to be so busy defending yourself, explaining your intentions, or trying to make them see reason that you never stop to realize how poorly they are actually treating you. By stopping the explanations, you stop the cycle. You are essentially telling them that they are no longer worth the investment of your breath or your energy. You stop trying to hold up a mirror to someone who is determined to keep their eyes shut. And in doing so, you finally stop wasting your precious time on people who aren't interested in growth. Detachment is the ultimate act of self-preservation because it requires you to stop caring about their reaction to your departure. When you argue, you are still giving them power. You are telling them that their opinion matters enough for you to debate it, or that their misunderstanding of you is a problem you need to solve. When you detach, you remove that validation entirely. You are no longer trying to force them to understand their own mistakes because you have finally accepted the hard truth. They likely already know exactly what they did, but they simply do not care. Stopping the argument isn't about being silent. It is about being finished. It is the realization that your peace of mind is not a courtroom where you have to prove your worth to a jury that has already decided to be against you. When you step out of the arena, you leave them with absolutely nothing to fight against but their own reflection. As long as you are present, responding, or defending, you are their target, and they can project all their issues onto you. But the moment you walk away, the game ends. You are no longer providing the resistance they need to keep the drama alive. Suddenly they are standing in an empty space with their anger, their games, and their manipulation having nowhere to land. Without you there to absorb the blow, they are left to face the reality of their own emptiness. They realize that they didn't just lose an opponent, they lost the person who was keeping the connection alive. Winning isn't about having the last word. It is about refusing to participate in the conversation altogether. By choosing detachment, you show them that you are no longer a resource they can drain at will. You become unbothered, unreachable, and completely unmoved by their attempts to stir the pot. This is the ultimate power move because it signals that you have moved on to a life where they no longer have a place. You haven't just left the building, you have completely renovated your life to exclude the possibility of their interference. When they realize that their attempts to trigger you are met with nothing but silence and indifference, they are forced to deal with the only person they have left, themselves. And that is a weight they cannot escape. 3. Choose distance over drama. Prioritizing distance over drama is the most effective way to strip a toxic person of their control. When you choose to confront someone, you are inadvertently handing them a platform. You are giving them the floor to twist your words, manufacture excuses, paint themselves as the victim, and deflect all accountability onto you. Every time you engage, you give them another chance to defend their poor behavior, which only serves to invalidate your feelings and keep the cycle of frustration spinning. By choosing distance instead, you deny them the very thing they crave most, your engagement. You stop playing their game entirely, and in that absence they are left with nothing but their own reality to grapple with. When you cut off someone's access to you, you instantly become untouchable. It is a profound shift in power. You are no longer someone they can pick up and put down whenever it suits their mood. Nor are you the emotional punching bag they use to feel better about their own insecurities. By drawing that line in the sand and refusing to cross it, you reclaim the territory of your own life. This distance is not meant to be a silent treatment or a passive-aggressive ploy. It is a firm, permanent boundary that says your peace is non-negotiable. Once you remove yourself from the equation, you're essentially taking away the audience that was validating their messiness. The true turning point happens when you stop entertaining the chaos. Think of toxic people like someone who relies on you to stabilize their unsteady world. You have likely spent months or years being the one to listen, the one to forgive, and the one to rationalize their behavior. You were the anchor holding them in place. The moment you walk away, that stability vanishes. They will almost certainly start to spiral because without your constant presence to absorb the negativity, they are forced to confront the internal mess they have been running from all along. They are used to you cleaning up after them, but now that you are gone, they have to face the consequences of their actions in total isolation. Watch how quickly the dynamic changes when you are no longer there to play the role of the stabilizer. They will try to reach out, test your resolve, and stir up trouble just to see if they can still get a rise out of you. If you stay the course and remain distant, they lose. They realize that their tactics, the drama, the guilt-tripping, the games, have lost all their efficacy. By refusing to give them the reaction they are fishing for, you leave them standing in the debris of their own choices. They will eventually look back at the space you used to occupy and realize that you weren't the problem they were fighting. You were the only good thing they had. And their inability to appreciate you is exactly what cost them your presence. When you choose to be unreachable, you are choosing your own dignity over the toxic noise of someone else's instability. 4. Choose grace over explosion. Choosing grace over an explosion is the ultimate power move because it forces the other person to look at themselves without the distraction of your anger. Anyone can lose their temper. It is the easiest, most primitive response to being mistreated. When you get angry, you lower yourself to their level, giving them the perfect excuse to paint you as the crazy one or the aggressor. They want an explosion because it validates their narrative that you are the problem. By refusing to give them that reaction, you rob them of their defense. You remain calm, polite, and composed. And in doing so, you highlight the massive gap between their chaotic behavior and your controlled maturity. Your composure becomes a mirror that reflects their ugliness back at them, making them look small, irrational, and completely out of line. When you respond with kindness in the face of their destruction, you are not being weak or forgiving. You are being ruthlessly effective. It is incredibly unsettling for a toxic person when they try to bait you and you refuse to take the hook. They are waiting for you to scream, to break down, or to fire back insults so they can feel justified in their own toxicity. Instead, you offer them nothing but a steady, unbothered grace. This kindness under control is a form of emotional armor that they simply cannot penetrate. Because you have kept your hands clean and your tone level, they are left with no choice but to sit in the uncomfortable reality of their own actions. You haven't started a war. You have simply stepped out of one, leaving them alone with their own behavior. The brilliance of this approach is that it forces them to confront their own conscience. When you fight back, they are preoccupied with defending themselves or attacking you, which keeps their mind off their own guilt. But when you don't fight back, the noise stops. The room goes quiet. And in that silence, their own inner voice is the only thing left for them to listen to. They cannot blame you for your reaction because you didn't give them one. They cannot call you unstable because you remained steady. They are forced to witness exactly what they are doing, and they have to acknowledge that they are hurting someone who didn't deserve it. Their guilt becomes an inescapable presence. And because you refuse to engage, they have no one to vent that guilt onto but themselves. Ultimately, staying kind when someone is being destructive is the final nail in the coffin for their ego. It shows that you are so completely unbothered by their games that you don't even find them worthy of your irritation. You are not holding on to bitterness and you are not playing the victim. You are simply moving through life with a sense of self-worth that they can no longer touch. That level of grace is not something they can replicate, and it is certainly not something they can fight. By choosing not to fight back, you win by default because you have kept your integrity intact. While they are left spiraling in the wreckage of their own actions, you are walking away with your peace, your dignity, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that you were the bigger person in every single way that mattered. 5. Let karma finish the job. When you decide to let karma finish the job, you are making the smartest tactical decision of your entire life. You are finally reclaiming the energy you have been wasting on people who never deserved it. Seeking revenge is a trap that keeps you tethered to the very person you are trying to escape. When you chase them to hold them accountable, or when you plot ways to make them see what they've done, you are still actively participating in their cycle of chaos. You are still thinking about them, still reacting to them, and still allowing them to occupy space in your mind. The moment you decide to drop the sword and step back, you are effectively cutting the cord that links your emotional well-being to their bad behavior. You stop being the teacher, the judge, or the executioner. And you start being a person who is simply too busy building a better life to care about their downfall. Letting them drown in their own patterns is not an act of neglect. It is an act of allowing reality to take its natural course. People who live by manipulation, deceit, or emotional cruelty carry those traits with them wherever they go. These patterns are not just reserved for you. They are ingrained in who they are. If they treated you poorly, they are currently treating others the same way. And they are inevitably building a life fueled by broken bridges and fractured relationships. You don't need to lift a finger or say a single word to punish them because their own behavior is the most efficient instrument of their undoing. When you step back, you stop shielding them from the natural consequences of their choices. You stop being the buffer that made their life feel stable, and you let the gravity of their own decisions catch up to them. Finally, understand that you never need to explain yourself, justify your silence, or point out their mistakes to the world. The truth is self-evident. You don't have to worry about them getting away with it because life has a way of balancing the scales. Even if it doesn't happen on your timeline, every lie they tell, every bridge they burn, and every person they mistreat adds up. And eventually, the weight of those consequences will be too heavy for them to carry. You save yourself so much heartache by simply letting go and watching from a distance as they face the lessons they were never willing to learn from you. By choosing not to chase revenge, you aren't just letting karma do the work. You are ensuring that your own hands stay clean, your heart stays light, and your future remains entirely yours to define. 6. Choose peace over approval. Choosing peace over approval is the single most significant shift you can make in your life because it completely dismantles the foundation of someone else's control over you. For a long time, you likely operated under the subconscious belief that if you were good enough, kind enough, or patient enough, they would eventually give you the validation you craved. You lived your life waiting for their nod of approval, their text, or their acknowledgement to feel like you were enough. This desire to be liked is precisely where they held their power. It made you malleable. It made you apologize for things you didn't do. And it kept you tethered to a version of yourself that was constantly bending just to fit into their world. The moment you decide that your internal sense of peace is more important than their opinion of you, that power dynamic shatters instantly. You are no longer asking for permission to be happy or to exist in your own truth. And without that leash, they have absolutely no way to lead you around. When you stop seeking their validation, you effectively take back the keys to your own energy. It is a liberating experience, but it is also one that terrifies those who used to rely on your people-pleasing tendencies. They were used to you being a reliable source of support and affirmation, and now you are suddenly unreachable. You aren't playing the game anymore, and you aren't waiting around to see if they approve of your choices or your boundaries. This lack of participation is incredibly jarring for them because it exposes that they never really cared about you. They only cared about what they could get from you. They were addicted to the version of you that served their needs. And now that the supply of your approval has been cut off, their true colors begin to bleed through. You start to see them for who they really are, not who you were trying so hard to make them be. Peace is the ultimate boundary, and it serves as a litmus test for every relationship in your life. It acts as a clear, unshakable filter that separates those who genuinely care about you from those who are just there to extract value. When you prioritize your tranquility, you stop making space for chaos, drama, and the endless maintenance that toxic people require. You will find that those who only cared about what they could get from you will drift away, frustrated that their manipulation no longer yields a result. Meanwhile, those who truly love and respect you will naturally align with your peace. They won't see your boundaries as a threat or a barrier. They will see them as a sign of your growth and a standard for the kind of environment you deserve to inhabit. By making this choice, you are finally honoring yourself in a way you hadn't before. You are no longer outsourcing your self-worth to someone who is clearly incapable of giving you what you need. You are deciding that your own approval is the only one that carries weight and that your mental well-being is not up for negotiation. This isn't about being cold or shutting people out. It is about protecting your spirit from the draining, performative nature of seeking approval from the wrong people. When you finally reach that state of internal calm, you become untouchable. You are no longer worried about whether they like you or whether they understand you because you are too busy enjoying the quiet, steady strength of being yourself. That peace is the greatest comeback you could ever have. And it leaves them with no choice but to watch from the sidelines as you thrive on your own terms. 7. Become unreadable. To become truly powerful, you must stop being an open book that anyone can read, edit, or throw away. When you constantly over-explain yourself, you are essentially giving away your power, offering them the keys to your internal world, and handing them the ammunition they need to use against you. You are trying to justify your actions, your feelings, and your boundaries. But the hard truth is that someone who wants to misunderstand you will never be convinced by your words, no matter how much you try to explain. Every time you try to clarify your stance, you are signaling that their opinion still holds weight. Stop the cycle of constant disclosure. When you choose to become unreadable, you shift the dynamic from you begging for their understanding to them wondering what is going on behind your silence. Being a mystery is not about being fake or playing games. It is about reclaiming your autonomy and keeping your energy for yourself. When you are an open book, you are predictable, and predictable people are easily manipulated. When you stop providing updates on your life, your thoughts, or your reactions, you create a vacuum. They are used to having full access to your emotional responses. And when you cut that access, they are left guessing. This transition from available to mysterious is where your true power lies. You stop being a participant in their drama because you have moved your attention to your own growth. They no longer get the privilege of knowing what you are thinking or how you are feeling. And that sudden loss of access is exactly what makes you so impossible to forget. It is a mistake to think that people fear being called out or having their bad behavior exposed. Most people who treat others poorly have already convinced themselves that they are the heroes of their own story. So your accusations will rarely change them. What they actually fear is being ignored. They fear the realization that they no longer have the power to influence your emotions or dictate your day. When you walk away quietly, you are sending the strongest message possible. They are no longer significant enough to warrant a response. You are not waiting for an apology. You are not waiting for them to get it. And you are certainly not waiting for them to come back. You are simply closing the door. And that final, absolute silence is the ultimate consequence of their actions.